John Miller was born around 1745 in London. During his career, he printed the London Evening Post from 1769 to 1781, which was branded the most radical newspaper in Great Britain, regularly criticizing the government's policies and the Revolutionary War itself. The Post was one among the first to report on the hostilities at Lexington and Concord, letting readers know it was British soldiers who first fired, the direct opposite of official government accounts that came later. He was quite well known for his pro-American views. Miller was imprisoned at least 5 times for his news and opinions, which incited people to rebel against the authority of a state or a monarch. He believed everyone had a right to know what their government was doing, and this included his staunch defense of the American colonists, all of which infuriated the British government officials. He actually reported on the First Continental Congress in 1774 and called on the British public to support the American colonists.
Right after he started printing the London Evening Post, he printed a letter that was addressed directly to King George III. So that got him in a lot of trouble. He and several other printers were put on trial for it. And that was just one of many instances. He took on Parliament when they tried to suppress any kind of news about what they were doing. He took them on head on. And it was an important time. This was in 1771, just a few years before the Revolutionary War. So it allowed people there to know what they were up to. It allowed people over here to know what they were up to.
Miller arrived in Philadelphia in January 1783, basically seeking asylum from England. And although he wanted to give up the newspaper business and just become a farmer, he could not refuse the South Carolina delegation's request to come to Charleston and become the state's first printer for the South Carolina General Assembly. Shortly thereafter, he and his family settled in Charleston, where he started the South Carolina Gazette and General Advertiser, the first daily newspaper in South Carolina. 2 years later, in 1785, the governor granted Miller 640 acres of land on both sides of 18 Mile Creek, located between what is now Pendleton and Clemson. Miller thereafter sold the Gazette and moved to the back country of the upstate. He, along with Andrew Pickens, Robert Anderson, Benjamin Cleveland, and others, was appointed to a commission to start a government for the newly formed Pendleton County. In 5 years, the commission met for the first time and chose Miller as their county clerk, as well as decided what tract of land would be the most convenient to erect the county buildings for what became the town of Pendleton. Around the time his son Charles died in 1797, Miller allowed the Hopewell congregation to build a new sanctuary and cemetery on 16 3/4 acres of his property. Today that church still stands, which is this Old Stone Church.
Well, if he hadn't donated the land for Old Stone Church, we may not have the cemetery or the church, and it's such an important place where so many figures in our history are buried, like Andrew Pickens, for example. They all went to church together, and so if it wasn't for his generosity, we may not have all of this today.